just a little airborne. It's still good, it's still good.
It's gone.
I know.
Hello, 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 hello.
Welcome along to the Wise Men Say podcast.
Yes, the Wise Men Say podcast, and we're going to be having a little listen to what they're saying about Sunderland FC.
In a preview, although we will be doing some previewing of the game against West Brom on Sunday. I'm Matthew, and I'm with Richard again in the car. It's very warm in here.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And I've had to turn the fan speed down because it interferes with the ambience of the recording. So, deal with that.
You alright?
Yeah, so what's the season? Is it season dead again?
I mean, whatever I kind of do it right, can I?
I mean, it's not really, you're not really the person who asked it.
No, I can't. Look, there's been a lot said about, and it must have done really well for the website, that article.
It did well. I mean, in the world of websites and SEO, a click's a click, innit? So
yeah.
it's they don't measure any metrics underneath the click. So yeah, it did well. But I mean, the opinion was, it wasn't just you saying that at the time. And like, I agree with you, and a lot of people agreed, saying there's. Well, I think what was it, Opta said there's a 3% chance at that point of Sunderland getting into the playoffs.
And only I could pick that angle and somehow get it wrong. I think we It's the thing is, it still isn't, is it? That's the annoying thing. I think we have fucked it, and I think if I was to write an article, I'm just going to write the same article. I think if I was to write an article again, I would take the angle of the season is over.
Yeah.
But I daren't now.
As we speak now, it's still alive.
It is.
That's before the Wednesday fixtures.
Yes, of course. Yes. Coventry play someone, and Preston will play, I believe.
Yeah, I did a little. I know you and Tom last season did the shrimper. They do it every season.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
And they kind of, if you don't predict the team's results, they'll do it based on recent form, and then kind of add a bit of a weighting for unpredictability.
Right.
I did it. I did our last 3 fixtures, didn't do anyone else's, and had us finishing in 6th, taking that last playoff place. But then I did it with everyone's fixtures within spitting distance, so everyone down to
Norwich, Watford,
whoever's sitting above Swansea. Swansea are out.
I think it's Watford.
Yeah. So I did that, and we were. I think we finished 8th.
Right.
The spread from 6th down to 12th was 2 points, I think. There's a lot of people missing out on goal difference, basically. But all these sides have to play each other. That's the issue.
Well, that's the thing. You try telling James Ray this season, so.
Well, compared to yesterday's
so you've got
results,
to kind of hope for draws in those circumstances.
Everything went Sunderland's way yesterday.
The other day, it was like everything's in our court, in that we just need to win the games that we can win. Was a game we should have won.
Well, we have to, yeah.
Hello.
We have to say that. Now we haven't won. That's a serious dent.
It is, yeah, hello.
I think that all but ends it for me personally, because we've got to now go to West Brom, who are a good side and are in the playoffs themselves right now. And then we've got to.
They've got a game in hand as well.
Whereabouts are you?
Teams around us with 2 games in hand over us after last night.
So Woodlands, yeah. Are you want to go back to Great Corby?
It'll obviously look a lot worse for us.
Yes, I just want
by 10 o'clock
brought
tonight.
Well, it might. It might not.
It might not. Yeah. That's the batshit craziness about this league. That's why it's so good.
No problem. What time was
this happens quite a lot. There's you know, it's very rare that all 4 playoff positions are decided, like with 4 games to spare. So
yeah,
the
that'd
fact
be fine.
that,
Yeah.
you know,
So if you can just text me your address, Woodlands, and I'll come and
one
get you.
place up for grabs from any team finishing, any team that
Alright.
like 12th up.
So it's just Woodlands. What number
Well,
Woodlands is it?
It's great to be part of the conversation.
Well, it is. I think it's probably
okay.
2.
And you go to the court, what bridge, then back to Woodlands, yeah?
To Birmingham. So I think the thing is, this is all fun now this season, but if it's the same next season,
that's fine. So
you're
the
going to be
Woodlands,
like,
yeah?
right, well,
I have, yes.
Etc.
Yeah.
But right, that's for conversation for another day.
No problem.
I think there's
Thank
2.
you.
Millwall
Bye-bye.
losing last night. I think they've still got to play Blackburn.
Yeah, about half
Blackburn
one. Yeah.
The ones, although they've got 2
bye.
games in hand, they're running. They've got, I think, Luton. They've still got to play Burnley. I still think they might have to play Sheffield United. They've definitely got the toughest run in. That said, we certainly do not have an easy one now.
No.
Last night was the most winnable game on paper of the 4 we had remaining.
That certainly was.
And we just didn't really do enough, did we?
It certainly,
it
certainly was the most winnable.
was a frustrating night because
I think they were a difficult side to play
looked at
against.
the possession. We probably dominated it.
Huddersfield, to be honest with you.
70s, possession-wise. For all of Huddersfield's industry going forward and their ability to break through. More on that later. We had so much of the ball in the final third, and
Trouble is, you're looking
just
at
couldn't find
Neil
that
Warnock's side, aren't you? It's a Neil
I
Warnock
think
Huddersfield now.
that was just the story of the night.
That was a difficult match.
There wasn't that magic bit of quality that you get from Ahmad, that you get from Jack Clark, that you get from Patrick Roberts on the night, and it just fell short.
Nothing kind of came off for all of the flair, all of the creative players we've got. Like, it's very rarely Clark, Roberts and Ahmad will have a brilliant game all at the same time. But last night, nothing worked for any of them really, and I think it was reminiscent of the early strikerless days and them 2 back-to-back 0-0 draws against
I just think
Preston and
we'll blow hot and cold. We've been hot and cold.
If we've got a centre forward on the pitch here,
with you.
it's probably a different game. It just wasn't. That said, it just didn't work. And aside from, I know Ahmad had a chance. Aside from Gelhardt's brilliant goal, to be fair. Well, have you seen it?
Goal. That was a good goal.
I missed the replays as well.
Right. Well, it came from this is roles reversed.
I know.
I saw it as well. Which is
No,
great.
I got back to my seat and I saw you were sitting there. It was great. Yeah.
I seen that. Yeah. So Patterson played a horrendous ball out. He gave it straight to Huddersfield, but then they lost possession. I think Pritchard picked it up, gave it to Neil. I've got the players definitely wrong.
Tell you what,
someone
man,
fed
it's Nick
into
Goodine, your podcast from the car. This, like, I like Wiseman's saying, right, yo, Eddie, and you
Chris Joe Gellert, and he was.
All you can hear
first
is
touch was brilliant. Took it
right
on the
noise
outside
from
of his
your
left
car
foot.
journey.
2-3 touches
might just
and pinned
be
it in the
too
bottom
picky.
corner. It was great. He almost sent the keeper the wrong way, even though it was from 25 yards. It was a. What is that noise?
It's your car.
It's one of your wheels loose. On the car, not on your chair. Like. Wait. And yeah, it was a great finish. And that aside, though, like, Ahmad missed a good chance, put it over the bar. Second half lacked. Ahmad, he miscontrolled one towards the end of the second half, and that was when things were just starting to get away, really, and we could have on another day lost it in the end.
I thought that there's a chance here that we're going to lose it. And it was definitely a we ran out of ideas kind of situation. You know, Gelhardt, as good as he played, I think we got an hour out of him, maybe a little bit more.
I probably would have left him on.
Yeah. Well,
no, I don't think he played any more than an hour. I think
he looked. To be honest, I thought he looked knackered before he came off. There was a ball sent down the channel. I think it was by 09, and he lost a foot race to their quite ungainly defender. And I thought that's a bit of a a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, I think
usually quite quick out of the blocks.
I think you're right there. To be fair, however, he offered a lot more than Lee Hadji.
He did. That was quite a bit of a concern for me if he's supposed to be the player that will replace Ahmad when Ahmad goes back to Man United.
Oh no, that's not good.
I don't know. It's a very small window into kind of what he can do, and he was in that central role. He was crowded out quite a lot, but he just seemed to perennially have the ball caught under his feet. It wasn't
very flighty.
Yeah,
very darting about and not really doing anything. But hey, wasn't he probably his longest appearance as well? So I think we're gonna
like 70 odd minutes 71 minutes when those final, what turned out to be the final, well, not the final, but those changes were made. It was. I thought, well, we've still got 20 minutes to.
Yeah, I was excited to see him, and
I just think it was a game where we're never going to win yesterday.
Disappointed.
I mean, against Huddersfield.
I think we got more desperate. I'm probably glad there was no reaction pod last night, because I probably would have said stuff about the referee, and it's not the referee's fault. He made some pretty poor decisions. I thought the pivotal one for me was the decision to book Dan Neil for the...
Well, that was Luke O'Nine's fault. Yeah. It was a terrible header.
But that said, it still wasn't a...
No, I didn't think it was a yellow card either.
I mean, if the defender's not... If the other midfielder involved wasn't telegraphing that sliding tackle, which went in a good 10 minutes before, it was he went down in instalments. It wasn't it was a scoop tackle. It wasn't particularly quick. Wasn't particularly dangerous. He didn't dive into it.
Was this a foul?
I don't even know if it was a foul.
Well, I thought it was a foul, but what knocked me about it was 5 minutes later down the other end, they made a tackle that was worse. He blocked him off. He just didn't book him. That's what referees. I can't be asked to talk about them again.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think I probably at the time thought that Pritchard should have won a penalty as well, but it looked like...
I don't think that was a foul. Well, I haven't seen it again, to be fair, but at the time I just thought, you're closer to that than me, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I was. Well, I kind of see someone going down in the box, and I will...
You are very much like my dad.
Yeah. I don't,
My dad just appeals for anything because... Yeah, probably.
But the referee gave a couple of, crappy calls towards the end, but to be honest... We had the opportunities, and if Ahmad scores in the first half, even if Pritchard didn't square it when he had a decent angle, and the opportunities Clark got in the second half, worked his way into the area and just held on to it a little bit too long. Those chances are finished, and we're not talking about the referee.
I think you go in 2-0 up, and I think that game's done and dusted. I don't see as soon as they got back level, it was now you're going to see Neil Warnock, because they were going down with head injuries that weren't head injuries, and there were lots of time wasting. But it's impossible to get annoyed by that now.
There was always going to be a difficult game.
That's what he does, and that's the game. And compare them to the team that we played against in November or whenever it was at
completely different side,
John Smith Stadium. How inspiring. It might not be now, but it was for ages. It just shows what a good manager Neil Warnock is, really. If anyone needed proof of what a good Football League manager he is.
Huddersfield is still no any safe, though. You look at that Huddersfield.
He's not he's not dead.
It's about 44.
Well, he isn't. He's not dead.
What he said last night was
a long way from being comfortable.
This is my last time here, unless another club gets desperate and brings me out of retirement again.
he's great, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I said on Twitter yesterday, and I've said it before. It's he's a manager comfortably in his uncle phase of management, and it's the phase where they don't care. No, they don't not care. They just
doesn't need to impress anyone.
They don't have to impress it. They're not desperate to kind of stamp their identity. They don't have an identity. They just know that winning is an identity. winning, with just finding a team that can do a job. And I think the younger managers are very bothered about how they look and what they say to the media, and take everything very seriously. And you get these managers that have been 100 times around the block, worked with the worst owners, worked with absolute shysters of players, charlatans, Tim Burgess, not
yeah.
No, they've just worked. They've seen everything in the game, and nothing really surprises them. But they still know how to organise a football team and motivate a football team, and work together as a unit. And Mowbray's definitely in that phase.
Oh, he's been in that phase for four.
And Warnock's definitely in that phase. The likes of Allardyce, Roy Hodgson, and they don't just have to be old. They just have to have been around the block for a while.
Well, Mowbray,
Mowbray's one of the younger of the uncle phase. But
yeah, he is. Yeah.
You could see the difference that Warnock had made to that Huddersfield team.
They're just solid, they're well organised. There's nothing flash about them. They're not particularly good. Don't
forget the season before
they don't have a
in the
lot of talent
as well.
in the squad. They're not. They're a unit. They're organised. They play together. They defend from the front. They're clever. Then they've got some nous. You could have put any Neil Warnock team strip on that team over the last 5 years. And you're going to struggle to beat them. Everyone's going to struggle to beat them. So they'll stay up, I think, and they look dead and buried. So,
well, I think they're probably like a couple of quality players away from being a half decent championship outfit. And had they had I know their lad, was it Radoni who's looked?
Did he score? Didn't score?
No, I wasn't. But they had players that perhaps could have hurt us, but they just didn't. They didn't have that cutting edge.
No, they didn't. Lacoste have changed the logo.
Yeah, they have as well. Yeah.
It's just a visual joke.
Yeah,
terrible.
Work, I don't know what but they to kind of wrap up the Warnock piece. They were well organised, and I think they took full advantage of the fact that Dan Neil was on a booking, and also kind of.
On his own,
yeah. I know it was Chris Weatherspoon raised that this is the same. This is essentially the same kind of front six that played against Stoke. So Neil with five in front of him. And in that game, it was noticeable how far up the pitch Pritchard was, without really affecting it. I think. Certainly in the first half, he was a lot further back, and he seemed to be keeping Neil company a little bit more. But he was still exposed.
But he's not a centre midfielder. He's not. I think he's I've never been the particularly the quickest, but he's lost a yard. Yeah. Certainly since he got injured, he just doesn't look quite the same, does he?
No, but he was certainly. He looked like he had the bit between his teeth last night.
Yeah, but he was desperate to score. I think you said it last night. And the one time I was like, well, go on then, hit it. He didn't. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah. And his insistence on being on every set piece is a bit.
I had him nailed on to miss a penalty in the second half. I'll take this. Well, can you not?
If we won that penalty, it would have been.
He would have taken that penalty. Yeah. He would have pulled rank, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Missed, which would have been, to be fair, quite funny.
But leaving Neil in the middle did leave him exposed, and as you say, it was obviously O'Nine's. Bad pass that.
He was really poor, I thought, O'Nine. He
didn't have one of his better games.
I'm looking for we'll get onto this soon, but Danny Bart got injured last night. I'm looking forward to the Joe Anderson and Luke O'Nine central defence partnership at West Brom on Sunday.
Yeah, it's like just bare bones FC, isn't it?
It's like, who's after him? Gary Bennett?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's Charlie Hurley possibly.
Yeah,
taking a shock return. But
I mean, it would. I mean, yeah.
It'd be a surprise. Don't think any boogies would have that down. You'd insist on the captaincy as well.
Yeah. I want to be number 6. Well, no, it doesn't. You can't because. Way.
But it was. Yeah, it was just it was just a frustrating night.
It was.
A game low on quality we weren't
I don't think
we weren't
Huddersfield were all
terrible.
that either. That's the main thing.
That probably accurately tells the story of our season.
Yeah, that's only 7 home wins now, and we've only got, well, at best we can win just over a third of our home games this season. It's not great at that.
I think possibly team selection was a little bit off.
I
don't want to criticise him because I like him. He's a nice man.
I'm not, and I kind of see that's a play straight out of the Neil Warnock playbook of playing a player against his old club. I remember we played Sheffield United in Division 1 or the Championship years ago under McCarthy, and Warnock put Paul Thirlwell in and made him captain for the night. And that didn't work, but I don't think anyone else was expecting it to. But
yeah,
but that kind of like,
what's your plan, Neil?
Oh fucking hell, Neil! But that's the kind of, you know, like putting Pritchard in did kind of it seemed like the natural thing to do, but.
I wasn't surprised that he played.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he played in central midfield.
Yeah, well, it's like who would you take out otherwise? When
he brought Gellert back in, and I was a bit like, well, and he scored, so you know.
Yeah. And like when it went to 1-1, and we needed, because they could have added a second. At any point in that second half, there was no opportunity really to bring. You know, if we were chasing the game, you can't really bring a defensive midfielder like Ekwah on.
Nah.
Had he started the game in a 4-2-3-1 with Neil next to him, I think that we would have been talking about a different result.
I think it would have been the better choice, and I think I agree. It would have been a better choice. Right, well, that's the game dissected.
Yeah. Just not enough quality.
Just not quite there.
So there we go. That's that's the part of the Weissman Say podcast. Great bunch of lads. Now we're going to be having a listen to last night's Total Sport. It was on BBC Newcastle. If anybody that missed it.
You know, every time Jack Clark got the
So
ball.
that was
on Friday, so Northern Parts Northumberland.
last night.
Of a man accused to fall
Of increased
Nature's
fast forward and get to the beginning of the show.
it doesn't expect to get a time of 15 minutes.
On a glorious time this season, Sunderland let slip a winning position at the Stadium of Light.
There we go.
They still not had enough chances to win the game.
Right, I'm just off to do a taxi run.
That was just one of the
But I will be
worst
back
case
home in about
scenario
20
though,
minutes.
following tonight's
The show
results
will
is
be
that they will be
continuing
3
to
points
broadcast.
off the playoffs with 3
Feel
games
free
left.
to
Can
add
it
to
still
the
be
poll.
done? Do give us a call tonight.
your comments in the chat.
Talk
See
about
you
one
in
of
2 days.
Newcastle's forgotten men tonight, one of the men that Ando mentioned there. Matt Ritchie's hardly figured this season, and his contract is indeed up in the summer. What part, if any, does he have to play in Newcastle's future?
Boys.
We will reflect on a glorious goalless draw at the International Stadium. Glorious in that it helped preserve Gateshead's National League status. While if you're a Blythe Spartans fan, you might want to get in touch about your team's crucially important win at Barnsley Celtic. We will have fans forum members in the studio a bit later. We will bring you a sporting time of our lives, and we will take your calls on tonight's Total Sport.
Total Sport.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
And the number that you need to call us is free to dial. It's 0800 234 6565. 0800 234 6565. Some people tell me I read the number out too quickly. So I thought it'd be nice and clear and concise there. Everyone's got that now. 0800 234 6565. And you can also send us a WhatsApp message, 08000 321 333. Start your message with the letters BBC. No one complains I read the WhatsApp number out too quickly. And you can text 81333, also beginning your message with the letters BBC. Nick Barnes, our Sunderland commentator, is here in the studio. Hello, Barnesy.
Good evening.
And also with us is Matthew Raisbeck, our Newcastle United commentator. Evening, Razor.
Good evening.
Lots to discuss on the programme this evening. As I mentioned, fans forum members will be joining in later, but plenty of time for you to have your say as well, whether it's via sending a message or our preferred method of getting in touch, giving us a call. So, should we get going, fellas? Shall we?
Yeah.
Yep. Crack on. Now, 2 gnarled old sages of the game went head-to-head at the Stadium of Light last night. I don't mean Barnsley and Benno. I mean Neil Warnock and Tony Mowbray. And it ended up on us even.
Clark's making a run. Away down the left-hand side. Picked out. He's going to come into the penalty area if he can, and he does. He's trying to get the ball back here. It's blocked. He gets a second attempt and it's headed behind. Ahmad now through the middle. He's got Gelhardt here on the right-hand side, and he's driven towards the edge of the area and shoots. Bottom right-hand corner. Jockey Gelhardt opens the scoring in the 35th minute. Is Gelhardt a little backheel to Pritchard. Pritchard just inside and an Ahmad puts it over the bar. What a really well-worked move and some nice touches. But Pritchard then playing it to Ahmad for the final touch, curled it over the angle of bar and post. Come back now on this right side of midfield for Karoma. Scored.
You've got to go to him.
Karoma has curled it in past Patterson. Huddersfield equalise in the 59th minute. Liadji back to Pritchard. Oh, he's gone down. A nudge on the shoulder. He went down. No penalty, says the referee. Clark's shot is way off. Bart limps up on his feet. I think Bart might be struggling. He waved at the bench, and now it could break here for Clark. Clark going through at the edge of the area, rolling it in. His touch is too heavy, and it's rolled off in behind for a goal kick.
Didn't get to the levels we needed to get to win the game. I think obviously they're fighting for every point. They picked a really athletic team tonight who looked to me as if they were set up to break on us in the spaces like some teams have done, and knowing that we couldn't really threaten them behind, so we had to try and play through them, and it's pretty dangerous. If you turn the ball over, you're in trouble.
We'll hear a bit more from Tony Mowbray in just a moment. We'll hear a little bit from Dan Neil as well, but probably Barnsley, Sunderland just didn't quite do enough to win, did they? Let's be honest.
That was Benno's question to me right at the final whistle. Did they do enough to win the game? The answer was no.
If they hadn't done, they'd have won it.
Yeah, it was. I think the last 15 minutes, I was more concerned. It was Huddersfield who were probably going to win it because I thought Sunderland were going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think they'd lost any sort of sense of their shape really, and I think a couple of players didn't have their best games. I didn't think Lyndon Gooch had a great game last night, and at times this familiar problem of them trying to walk the ball in the back of the net so many times because it's the only way that some of the players know how to play. Roberts, Ahmad, and so on, and give Huddersfield credit. They came with a game plan. They stuck to it. They didn't make a substitution. Neil Warnock saying afterwards he was just pleased with the way the 11 were performing. There's no need to replace anybody, and they stuck to their guns. They stuck to their jobs. They wore Sunderland down to a degree, and it was just one of those nights, just not quite enough cohesion and quality to see it through. And I think you go back all season, they've never put together a 3-win run, and I think the writing was on the wall before the game last night.
Certainly, yeah. And I think perhaps, Marco, just not enough players firing on all cylinders. I think one moment actually perhaps summed it up for me, and I was sitting next to Benno last night and listening to some of his comments, and I think it was when Pritchard had a great chance to shoot at one point, and he tried to play somebody else in.
Without looking, really, yeah.
And then moments later, he probably should have played someone else in, and he tried a shot which was blocked from a difficult angle. And that possibly summed it up, maybe just a little bit of decision-making and some players just not quite doing what we know they are capable of doing.
Yeah, it's been a very bitty season in many respects because for individuals like Pritchard, because they've had injuries and it's very difficult to keep your form going when them kind of things are happening to you, and it has fluctuated the team. We don't really have a settled team. The manager's having to make changes constantly, and also in contrast to Huddersfield not making a sub, we always seem to be looking to make substitutions probably because of the lack of experience and lack of that sort of hardened shell that you need as maybe a gnarly old pro. I mean, you look at their right back, Jack Clark last night. Pearson, wasn't it? every time Jack Clarke got the ball, he was in a physical contest, and quite often he was having to go into the physical contact test before he got the ball, and he just got worn down, and I think that just went, all over the field last night, and it's one of our weaknesses, and we didn't have a way round it, unfortunately. But, I do have to give some credit to Sunderland because they kept going. They stuck to their guns. They keep going forward. They keep trying to commit players forward. They keep trying to pass around the edge of the 18 box to find that, golden moment, which often they do find. So, I don't think we can be too down on them. If anything, it's more just a case of, I think, just running a little bit out of steam. And if we had those almost a team of other players who are on the sidelines at the manager's disposal, things might be different.
You did say, Barnsley, that they perhaps lost their shape a little bit towards the end of the game. What did you make of the way that they lined up? I mean, how would you describe the formation that they used?
4-1-4-1.
Yeah.
It's more attack. I mean, they effectively lost a holding midfielder in not replacing Michu because they put Pritchard.
Because it just
in
felt
the middle, but more of an attacking midfield. So Dan Neil, I mean, we'll talk about Dan Neil in a second. The yellow card he picked up early was actually, it was a bad yellow card to pick up because
he had that role, as you say. He was the only one.
Well, let's hear from him. He picked up the yellow card early, and he agreed. It changed the game for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's especially the role I was playing. With Pritch and Pat ahead of us, I was that one that has to break the play up and put in tackles and win duels, and that early yellow card did kill us a little bit. I felt like I couldn't put myself about because I didn't want to go down to 10 men and obviously leave the team kind of hanging. So yeah, I think defensively did cause me individually and probably the team, because that's my role to stop counter-attacks and things like that, so it probably did cause a few problems, yeah.
Yeah, interesting to hear him say that, because, Marco, he did have that role having to protect the back four. In front of him, he pretty much had 5 attacking midfielders, didn't he?
Yeah, and well, I mean, look, there were times when we were starting attacks from the edge of our own penalty box. People were coming back and getting back in numbers and supporting him. But it's when, it's when you commit forward and all of a sudden that, them 4 midfielders in front of him and the centre forward are all in the box, and it breaks down. It is a bit, it's very edgy for a player like Dan Neil on a night like that. But I thought his tackle was rash for his yellow card. I thought it was quite a bad tackle actually, and just didn't understand why he did that so early in the game, because you look at the opposition. I just mentioned Pearson before. He must have given, I don't know, Nick, 5 or 6 free kicks away last night, and I don't think he got booked in the end because he did it in a clever way.
But there's a lot of experience. I mean, I like Jack Rudoni, and we mentioned last night how Sunderland were looking at him a couple of seasons ago, and to my mind, I've lost count how many touches on the ball Rudoni got, but he drove the middle of the park for Huddersfield Town last night. He was everywhere. Took all their set pieces as well, largely. I mean, to have someone like that in, I mean. I like Rudoni, and I can see why Sunderland, were interested in linked to him, and I can see, and he's the sort of player I wouldn't be if he arrived at Sunderland in the summer. They're good.
But they committed 21 fouls last night. 21 fouls, and it's annoying because it stops a lot of the time. They were stopping our play. And, by Dan getting that early yellow card, he couldn't do those little tactical fouls, the little, they're not quite a yellow card, you get away with a few. The referee was obviously letting quite a bit go last night.
But we knew that's what Huddersfield were going to do.
Exactly.
Set pieces, fouls,
but that's where I
down.
think, as a team, we're struggling a little bit with that. It shows on a night like that when you come up against a team, who, I mean, look, probably it was a good. They might feel a bit disappointed. They got 11 corners as well last night. Which, if you'd have told them before the game they'd have 11 corners, they thought they would. I think they would really feel confident they would score from one.
Well, and a number of free kicks. There was a lot of free kicks outside the area.
Tony Mowbray said afterwards, actually, he was very pleased with the way his team defended well, that, bearing in mind the lack of height in the team generally. So, what did Tony Mowbray have to say to you after the game, Barnsley?
My question to him was frustration the key word for him?
Yeah, I think so. I think didn't get to the levels we needed to get to win the game. I think obviously they're fighting for every point. They picked a really athletic team tonight who it looked to me as if they were set up to break on us in the spaces like some teams have done, and knowing that we couldn't really threaten them behind, so we had to try and play through them, and it's pretty dangerous. If you turn the ball over, you're in trouble, and we were trying to be mindful of that, and so it at times was a bit scrappy. Didn't have enough men in forward areas because we were very mindful if we lose it we were in trouble. So and yet we're frustrated with the goal we lost. You know, the guy stays on the ball for too long, really, travels 30-40 yards and whacks it in the top corner. Someone's got to tackle him. It's and yet, you know, I haven't had a go at them as such. I've just aired my frustration that, you know, if you're going to be a team that genuinely challenges, you have to find consistency and you have to be able to bring it every game. And I think we fell a little bit short tonight of the levels that we know we can reach.
Yeah, Benno hates it when players aren't closed down, and he was very frustrated with the way that it was conceded last night.
I mean, as he said, like Tony said, letting him run as far as he did without being closed down, without being challenged, and I mean, it is we come back to this very young team which has been playing since January without someone, an outlet, if you like, constantly upping their levels and surprising people some weekends, and then we get a night like last night and everyone's sort of down about what they did. I mean, they didn't lose the game, and as Marco said, they kept going. And when you look at the season in the round and what they've been achieving, you've got to take your hats off.
Yeah, we had a few negative messages last night, which I put to Benno, but I think that's probably just final whistle frustration, really. We'll see what people say tonight.
No, I mean, look, as Nick said, defending all those corners and free kicks, that was admirable last night.
Patterson was excellent last night.
Especially, he stood out, obviously. But the commitment from the players has been incredible this season. I think we've still, 3 games left. Let's not get despondent, because we're so close to it, and it's sort of within our grasp. Maybe a little bit of help from some other teams failing as well, but it might just open up. So I think that's probably what the message will be. Yeah. This morning, if they've gone in for a cool down, warm down, or whatever, to relax and get back on it for the weekend. But I just think this, we're still in it, and this team can go and get another big result again at the weekend. They've done it week after week over this season.
Yes, it is so tight. I mean, Millwall lost at home last night to Birmingham, didn't they? So Sunderland are still within 3 points of them.
That was a patched-up Birmingham team last night.
So it just shows you that anybody can beat anybody. I mean, there are lots of games tonight. I don't know what results you're hoping for tonight, Barnsley, with those games tonight.
I mean, look, Blackburn have got 2 matches in hand. One of them's against Coventry, obviously, tonight. Coventry's still in the hunt for the playoffs.
A draw in that one, I think you want,
like
don't
Sunderland
you?
on 62 points, so you don't really want them to win it and go to 65.
A draw there,
do you?
which
But you
keeps them
don't want
both in range.
Blackburn to run away with things, so a draw would be absolutely ideal. West Brom are currently 6th on 63 points. They play Sunderland, obviously, at the weekend. They will conceivably drop out of the top 6 tonight with results. But it's all very tight. It's looking very much like Sunderland.
Preston are at Swansea. You've had a couple of good results.
Preston play Blackburn on Saturday.
Yeah, so it's another
derby match. You think, what's this?
And then you look at, the other thing
in the hunt.
You look at things like Millwall. They've had 1 win in 5. Just looking at the quickly at things here now. They'll probably be feeling that they've took their foot off the gas after having a really good run, and so those kind of things. All of a sudden, you look at a team like that. They might, there might be 2 places up for grabs. I think, and that's what we're going for. And I just think let's not be negative, because we know the reasons why we didn't win that game last night. It's blatant. We lack a centre forward. We lack strength in depth. You look at the bench. We put 2 lads on who've got about 9 minutes experience between them, didn't we, last night?
Mentioned that in just a moment, but it's worth, I think, mentioning that the 3 games left, 2 are away, and that actually might be a strength rather than a weakness.
Yeah, that might help. Okay, so let's hear a little bit about those substitutions then that Tony Mowbray made, because you chatted to him about them afterwards,
didn't you?
Yeah,
because he brought on 17-year-old, only by a couple of weeks, Tommy Watson and Lee Hadji.
I've tried to bring some mobility to the top end of the pitch because they were squashing us down. They playing right on the halfway line and no fear in behind. Trying to get some people with some genuine pace rather than just technique, really. And but yeah, it didn't really pan out, But I don't think that's a secret. That's not something I'm just mentioning now. It's been there for a long time, and yet I don't mention it too much because I don't. The next team we play, their manager will be watching and listening and thinking, or their analysts will be thinking, "All right, they're struggling over the top, so let's play high, let's press high." And then we either have to play through them and get up one-on-one situations and score goals, or they nick it off us and they threaten our goal. And so, just trying to put some more pace on the pitch if we could. That was all.
And it's interesting he mentions about the press because Neil Warnock came in last night and said that he was really pleased with the press. He told them, to push up high on Sunderland to stop them playing out from the back, and he was really pleased with the way that worked, and it did work. How many times did we see Patterson had to, go back to the goal kick because Huddersfield were keeping 2-3 players up around the penalty area. And
just on a slight aside from that, Neil Warnock, perhaps the most entertaining manager I've ever listened to in a post-match press conference as well. He's just a naturally witty man. I didn't quite expect that. I don't know if I've ever really kind of watched him in action before when he's talking to the media.
It's a raconteur.
He was great, Mark.
So most people are paid to go and listen to that after the game.
He's a charmer. I mean, he knows his stuff, and he knows when to press people's buttons and things. And,
he does.
So, but at the heart of it, he's a man who just loves football. I mean, I'm sure his wife is delighted he's took another job. Roy Hodgson's wife.
He's old school, but he was also very self-deprecating as well. He was calling himself a dinosaur, but I think he's probably far from that in many ways as well. In how astute
what's wrong with
a manager.
There's nothing wrong with being an old, experienced manager. There's sometimes you can get blurred by all the science and all the there is a happy medium. You can't. It's not all about numbers and charts and data. It's football is a game about emotions and feelings and I think that's where managers like him and Tony are really have something over some of the other managers.
Let's move on then. Ando's getting restless. He wants to talk Newcastle. Aren't you, Ando?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying listening to this.
Well, we've got one more clip of Tony Mowbray to listen to, haven't we, Barnesy? There was a bit of a concern over Danny Batth because he came off.
Well, he asked to come off, didn't he? He raised his hand, and I wondered afterwards, how is he?
I've just had a 10-15 minute sort of chat with him, but I didn't, Danny was sitting there with a bit of ice, really, so I don't know. We'll see tomorrow. We're in tomorrow. Everybody will get assessed, see what the team's looking like, see who's fit and available, and then we'll prepare for the weekend against West Brom.
So no information there, really, Marco, but you would just think if he was missing, then that would just be the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, wouldn't it?
It would, it's got to happen, hasn't it? The luck we've had this year, but look, a bit of ice. He didn't really. They do quite well, the managers, don't they, Nick? Not to say, he had a bit of ice on his thigh. Oh, sugar! I didn't mean to say that, obviously, but to keep it, he had a bit of ice in a whiskey tumbler. I hope that's what it was. But he walked off. He didn't look in too much distress. Probably, just a sensible decision from an experienced player. So hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Lots of messages coming in about Sunderland. I'll come to those a bit later on in the programme. What about Edouard Michou? He didn't play last night.
Well, he was the player, that they were trying to keep under wraps because of a back injury. He'll be assessed ahead of the weekend. He's had a scan on the back. It didn't show very much, so he has to try and train and feel the pain. It's a bit of damage, but Tony Mowbray says whether he can play through that or not, we'll see if he's able to train over the next few days. So he initially said on what day of the week we're on, Monday, ahead of the game, that he didn't think it was anything too serious. So fingers crossed that is the case with both him and Danny Bart.
When are you going to be speaking to Tony Mowbray again?
Friday.
Friday. Okay, so we will look forward to an update then. And Barnsley will, of course, be back on Total Sport tomorrow with all the very latest Sunderland news and talking points as well, probably including a look back at the results from later this evening and how they have affected Sunderland's playoff hopes. But do you think they can still do it, bearing in mind the 3 games they have left and the gap that they are likely to have to bridge? Give us a call. We would love to hear from you, but we're going to talk Newcastle next.
AI, artificial intelligence, is taking over the world.
Matt Bailey at breakfast.
It's able to do loads and loads of stuff now, including write songs.
I had a little go at some artificial intelligence weekend.
Oh, you've made a weekend song yourself?
Yeah.
Matt Bailey mentions I'll be every single day, and phone boy Tom deserves a pay rise.
There you go.
Matt Bailey mentions Albie. He's my son, by the way.
I don't think he'd write those lyrics.
Yeah.
That's the only problem with
Just
that.
to take it one little step further, I tried to get an artificial intelligence of Matt's voice.
Well, you've uploaded my voice to AI to see if it could say something. Good morning. Coming up on the show, I'm going to be talking about Albie for the 7,000th time. And I'll be pressing some wrong buttons. That's not actually me.
No.
The sound of the North East at breakfast. BBC Radio Newcastle, making a difference in the North East.
As we mentioned last night, artificial intelligence will run football soon enough. Matches will be officiated by robots. The AI will be robots. Players will be robots eventually. The way it's going.
It's funny because you say that, because it's funny when Tony Mowbray said, I was desperate to try and get someone on with raw pace rather than technique. And I thought, look, that was me all over. We're a dying breed. They just don't have people who could run it. They're all fancy dans and tricksters, you see. That's the problem. You need some just raw
just run in a
sprinters.
straight line and then smash it.
Well, I didn't just run in straight lines.
There's one or two I wouldn't like to be chasing.
That's probably fair as well. Some of them are, yeah. Some of them combine those attributes, don't they? I think the next sort of facet of football, though, to be automated will be commentators. I think razor commentators will soon be obsolete because basically, the technology's almost there to watch the game and then to kind of describe what's going on. So, I think it might be,
we're going to be redundant.
Oh, possibly.
Controversial.
I'd be careful where you're going with this, Friday. I'd be very careful.
An automated razor bot? Well, I'm only saying it because I'm joking, but now you're thinking about thinking, actually could happen, couldn't it?
We were discussing snooker commentary in the office before the show started. You were in here preparing Friday, but
as I do meticulously.
Yeah, and how
couldn't get a robot doing this job, tell you. No.
How we would all sound if we were in a booth at the Crucible. If Gary Wilson gets all the way to the latter stages of the World Championship, and Ando delivered the immortal line.
Just put it in the pocket, will you?
You wouldn't get that from AI, would you? Or maybe you would.
People keep talking about that line, actually. People keep sending me clips of different sporting actions saying, I wish we had Ando's commentary on this.
No.
There was one that somebody sent me just earlier this week, which was of a Norwegian game. Yeah, seriously. And it said, I wish Ando's commentary was on this. And there was a fella went down, the defender went down holding his hamstring, let the attacker go clean through on goal, but the attacker very sportingly just turned away and kicked the ball out of play rather than go through and score. And yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I knew you'd say that. And so whoever tweeted it said, I want to hear Ando saying, just put it in the net. He's watching it now.
It's like Paolo Di Canio, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm just seeing it.
Yeah, what do you think of that? So he was going to be through on goal. No. I mean,
no.
Poor fella pulls his hamstring, nobody near him.
That's not the forward's fault.
No, you wouldn't stop, would you, Marco?
Absolutely. Well, I didn't have eyes in the back of my head, did I, ref? So I had to keep going.
Oh, he did pull it and all. It was a right sniper's job.
It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what,
That's part of the game, isn't it?
Part of the game. He's running ragged. The centre forward's running ragged all afternoon, and then you get your break.
To be fair, he's ahead of him. The defender's ahead of him, and then all of a sudden it's just a sniper's job.
So then the attacker gets to the ball.
Gone. 6-week job.
If you're a defender losing that race, though, you could pretend to pull up, couldn't you? Go down, get treatment, and then...
I did that. You don't know where it leads nowadays.
Nobody would do that, especially in an Eddie Howe team. Nobody would do that.
Because they would have defended the situation properly, because they have the best defence in the country. That's what you mean, isn't it?
Yes.
Not that they would be employing any dubious
dark arts.
tactics.
Dark arts, as they are often called.
That's not what he calls them. He just says they do what they have to do to win.
Yeah. One man's dark art is another man's professionalism.
Hey. got to do what you've got to do.
Other teams have been doing it for years. Aston Villa were good at it, weren't they?
Well, I'll tell you he's probably quite good at it. He's definitely quite good at it, because I've seen him at it in the past. Hasn't played much this season, but we're going to talk about him now. One of Newcastle's most experienced players, Razor.
Well, you're on about Matt Ritchie, and he's someone that I've been speaking to Eddie Howe about, actually. And Ritchie is someone who's been around at Newcastle for 7 years, joined ahead of the Championship 2016-17 season, and 33 years of age now, and no longer a first-choice player in terms of starting matches, but he still has an important role to fulfil at the club. And on the pitch this season, Ritchie, 9 appearances, 6 have come as a substitute in the league, with his introduction in the 71st minute against Liverpool at home in February, the earliest that he's come on into a game. And there have been a further 3 outings in the Cups, including off the bench very late on at Wembley. His only start came at Tranmere in August. And actually going back further for a last Premier League start for Matt Ritchie, that was on the 19th of December 2021 in a home defeat by Manchester City, though he did lose much of the second half of last season to an injury, so he had a few months out, which will have prevented him from playing a bigger part. Despite then a lack of time on the pitch, as those statistics illustrate, Eddie Howe has been telling BBC Radio Newcastle just why he still values Matt Ritchie as a key player.
His leadership skills are second to none. I've seen a real change in Matty through the years. Obviously, I managed him as a young player with a fierce determination to get to the very top when I first started to work with him. And now I'm seeing it the other side, where he's developed a lot of aspects in terms of leadership and being a role model for the younger players. His wisdom and his experience has been invaluable to the group this year. He, at certain moments, can know what to say to a player to help them in their career, really, in their journey. I will make it clear that I still think Matty can play. You know, he's a top player. We see that every day in training. He has the ability to create and score goals. I don't think he's ever lost that ability. So we love him to bits.
Is he potential coach or manager material?
I think if he wants to be, I think that will very much be in his court, but I do see an opportunity for him if he wanted to go into that field, that he'd be excellent at it.
And though you were smiling when you were listening to that, you know that Eddie Howe likes to talk about players' qualities, and he did so there with Matt Ritchie.
Yeah, look, Matt Ritchie's been a good servant at the football club, there's no doubt about that. His game time this season has been very limited. It's just said that his contract's up the end of the season. It'd be interesting to see what they do, whether they...
Well, guess what the first message on the topic says tonight on that?
Give him a contract.
It does. It does. Williams says, I would keep Ritchie, a great pro and a leader. That's what Eddie Howe thinks as well. And an example to younger players. It wouldn't surprise me if Eddie Howe found him a place on his coaching staff.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that either. You know, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I just think giving him a contract, he's played very little football this season at all. He'll play even less next year because money will be spent in the summer, and he'll fall further down the pecking order.
And you might be good with the younger players, have a lot of experience, be a good leader, etc. But if you're not playing games, you're of limited value. And if you're not playing games, you're going to get frustrated as well.
Yeah, and I think Matt Ritchie, if you read it right, you know, will want to play football. You know, he seems a good character, but he's coming to the twilight of his career.
Do you think a Premier League team might come in for him? Maybe one of the promoted sides, or
possibly
a team in the bottom
possibly,
half that might
but
think,
I mean, he's, you know, I think he knows that he hasn't got long left at the top level. You know, Premier League, Championship, whatever, and he will want to play football. I would imagine. I'm surmising that he would want to play football. Would he be happy to sign another contract here and not play any football at all next season?
I remember
nice work if you can get
interviewing Razor when he first arrived. It's a long time ago. It was when Newcastle were in the Championship, wasn't it? And he actually dropped a division to come to Newcastle. I can remember listening to him then and being very impressed with his ambition. He's been at Newcastle a long time.
Yeah, 7th season now at the club, and he's on 197 appearances.
Oh, get to 200,
I'm sure
surely.
he will get to 200.
Yeah.
But Eddie Howe says there that he still feels Richie can play, and he's not just making up the numbers. So while he hasn't selected him to start, there are players in the team, and then there are other players in reserve, if I can put it like that, who are ahead of Richie, clearly, in the pecking order. But he's someone that, as we've been discussing, I think, with his attitude and professionalism and knowledge of the game as well, because he's had an interesting career in the lower leagues, getting to the top into the Premier League, and then all he's been through with Newcastle, lots of ups and downs, and they're through a really difficult time in the club's recent history, and still around following the takeover. He'll have a lot to offer, and I think we mentioned this after the Brentford match when Anthony Gordon was substituted and reacted angrily. One of the players that was with Gordon on the pitch following the final whistle as they went to see the supporters was Matt Ritchie, who I think had an arm around him, and they were having a chat. Now, it could have been about anything, but you just think that leadership is important, and something Eddie Howe's referenced as well over the last couple of months is that they have, in allowing John Joe Shelvey to move permanently to Nottingham Forest, lost an experienced player and a big voice and a leader from the dressing room as well. So there are other strong voices in the Newcastle team that they will have next season, but Matt Ritchie is, as Eddie Howe says, providing that. But I think from a player's point of view, he seems like the sort of character that wants to get the most out of his career, which you would say he's done so far. He's been an international with Scotland as well. I think if the chance came for him to play more regularly, then he would probably look at that, wouldn't he? And as Ando said, the contract that he signed at Newcastle in March 2020 was for another 3 years, and obviously that will be expiring later this summer, later this year.
I'm going to quickly read this text from Brian, then we will move on. Brian says, keep Richie, great influence, a leader's attitude to the rest of the team, could still play the odd game as a backup as well. The rest that Ando mentioned, though, should be allowed to leave, says Brian, and I dare say that we will come back to that. Anything else for us, Razor?
Yes, Eddie Howe has been talking about the improvements to Newcastle's training ground.
Oh, God, you are short of material, aren't you?
Well, we don't have to use this. If you're not interested.
I am interested.
That's fine.
I am interested.
Okay. We can have a vote if you want.
No, carry on.
All right. The work to modernise and upgrade the training facility that Newcastle use in Benton began last summer, and it's ongoing. It includes the construction of new hydrotherapy and plunge pools, improved changing facilities, new doctor and physio rooms, an updated presentation room for the players, as well as a new lounge area for them, and an extended dining area as well. So this, from Eddie Howe, is how things are looking.
Going well, yeah, it's going good. I think the whole environment is changing. The players are noticing that change. I think they're enjoying seeing that change and being able to stay at the training ground in better conditions for longer. I think the whole area in the building's better, out of the building's better, and they're still not finished yet. So really exciting times for us all when we're here so long.
See, exciting times, Eddie Howe says.
Yeah.
And, with the training
that,
ground.
because a lot of people were suggesting that new training facilities, new training ground. Well, if they're spending all that money at the present training ground, it suggests they're not going to be moving training facilities anytime soon, Eddie.
Well, it's obviously something they can get on with, isn't it? Improving what they've got. Whereas securing a new site and building a new facility would take a bit longer. I'll be sure to get another update from Eddie Howe on that Friday before the end of the season, because I know you'll be very keen to hear it.
I am interested.
What I can't give you is the announcements for the matches next month that are still to be rearranged or confirmed.
It's a joke.
So the Premier League will announce at some point, and it was supposed to be last week.
What's the delay? Down to?
Well, I'm not certain, but this will affect Newcastle's home match against Leicester, currently scheduled for Saturday the 20th of May. There's also the rearranged match against Brighton, which was due to be played originally on the League Cup final weekend, so we don't know when they are going to be played yet. There's been no announcement from the league, despite them promising that there would be something at the beginning of this week. But it could well be riding on the clubs in Europe and confirmation of their progression or elimination from Europe in Chelsea's case last night, and then maybe we'll find something out tomorrow or by the end of the week. But time is getting on, and it does affect supporters who want to book travel.
Yes.
And we're talking about 2 home matches here, but still, people will have season tickets who aren't necessarily in the area, or other people might have a ticket and want to move, want to come up for the game, and there's away fans as well. So it does affect supporters, and waiting a long time for another delayed fixtures announcement.
Thank you very much indeed. Marco, have you said anything interesting in the last 10 minutes? I just realised I had you turned off by mistake.
No, I've been listening.
Good, okay. Just checking. Razor, thank you very much indeed. Razor will be back on the programme tomorrow as well with all the latest from Newcastle.
Can I just need to probably put a rider to that. I haven't actually said anything at all. It wasn't what I said wasn't interesting.
Right, okay.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Okay.
What did you think about Eddie Howe on the Newcastle training ground, Marco? That was interesting, wasn't it?
Well, slow news week, as Pridey said, isn't it, that one? But, yeah, okay. Who cares? Lick the paint here, there.
He's trying to get his own back now by dwelling on it even further. Yeah. Right, I'm going to move on by reading a message out from Robert, actually. Robert wants to know if today, Ando, is special for you. Do you always kind of celebrate the 19th of April? Don't you? No, he's looking at me like I'm completely nuts. It's not me, it's Robert. No reason to celebrate it. Robert says, on this day in 1986, Ando scored the equaliser at Chelsea. And on this day in 1988, he scored the equaliser at Watford. Also 1-1. Happy scoring anniversary, Ando.
Really?
There can't be many other days of the year where you've scored.
That could be Ando's new nickname, the equaliser.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that.
And the 19th of April could be Equaliser Day.
I'll have to make a note of that.
Yes. Yeah. And you can celebrate it. Celebrate it this year. But Robert,
okay.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
Robert. Thanks.
Do you remember those goals? Either of them? Was the Watford one outside the box? Pinged in. Low, bottom corner. Not that many of them. Come on, don't
Free
pretend.
Kick, was it?
Don't pretend that you're going through the millions.
You know what it is? I'm trying to remember. There wasn't that many, but
there were a long
the
time
one
ago.
at Chelsea.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, we'll see if Robert remembers. He can get back in touch with us and tell us. Thank you very much, Ando, Razor, everyone. But we haven't finished yet. It's not going on until 8 o'clock. You can go, Razor, if you like. And you have something else I
will
to
then.
do. Yeah, no, you can stay if you want as well. You're welcome to stay. We're going to talk about Gateshead. You might want to talk about Gateshead. Davey's waiting on the line, though, so Sunderland fans, stay tuned. Davey's warming up. Are you warming up there, Davey? Ready to come on?
I'm warming up, all right.
Good stuff. You'll be on after this little Gateshead bit, okay?
Right, well, son.
Good stuff. So, yeah, Davey's there. He's ready to go. Never has a 0-0 draw been so celebrated. Gateshead will be playing National League football next season. There's stalemate with Dorking Wanderers. Whoever thought a 0-0 draw with Dorking Wanderers would be such a thing to celebrate? Anyway, that was coupled with a 5-1 thumping for Torquay, which means Mike Williamson's side can't go down.
I look at it as a huge achievement from where we've been, especially the back end of the season. The boys have just put incredible amounts of effort in every game, and yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As silly as that might sound, but the amount of solutions we've been forced to find is made everyone better, and I think we'll all benefit next season for it.
There's an element of relief as well as joy, though, I guess, because you've had obstacles at various different times.
Yeah, of course. Like you say, it was a pretty poor game to watch for spectators, but like you say, it's job done, and there's just loads of positives to take and loads to build on. So huge relief. It's an incredible league. It's I don't think there's a league with such huge budgets and low budgets and diverse teams and clubs and things like that, and it's not easy. And like I say, the boys deserve all the credit because we're going to be fighting in here next year.
Mike Williamson with Colin White. There was a massive win in the National League North last night for Blythe Spartans. They are out of the relegation zone after a 2-0 win at Farsley Celtic. So Blythe Spartans fans, Gateshead fans, do give us a call tonight as well.
Call 0800 234 6565. BBC Radio Newcastle.
We'll have fans forum members in the studio after 7 o'clock. As well, we've got Neil, a Sunderland fan, and Bradley Wiggins is in to talk to you. It looks like is somebody in his cycling gear. He's looking good there. Who's that? That's Darryl. Darryl, Newcastle fan, already in the green room, in all his gear. He's put it. I hope he's recovering in time to come into the studio. I hope he's not too out of breath. Davey, sorry to keep you waiting there. You all right?
It's all right, Tim. There's always an agenda when I'm coming on with the news the other night.
Don't worry, you've got time now, though. No, but now the floor is yours, Davy.
So I draw the line at Newcastle, mind you. I'm not waiting for them.
By the way, Davy, when you came in as a fans forum guest, you didn't cycle in.
No, there's no chance of that.
What did you make of last night, Davy?
Simon, I mean, I've heard Mark were on. It was very disappointing, very disappointing. I thought that the game was there for the taking, and I mean, I said this to Mark the last time, and if John's listening, Sunderland have played 4-1 once this season. That was against Stoke City. Now that gives you an answer, doesn't it? We can't play that system, man. One man in midfield, it doesn't work.
Look, sometimes though, I think we get twisted up about systems. I just, you know, he ain't gonna.
He's explained it like systems.
Well, all I say is, you know, it wasn't very often that we only had, you know. Most of the time, when they were attacking, we had more than one midfielder holding in front of the back, you know, in front of the back four. You know, there were quite a few sort of little skirmishes in our own box when we were defending, and you know, Roberts was back there, Clark was back there. I know what you're saying. I can get your drift.
You know what else it stops Marco, right?
It's the type of player rather than the system. I think is our problem.
Sunderland like to give and go players.
Yeah.
But they weren't doing that last night in the fear of it breaking down and getting brought on. How many times did Roberts and Ahmad give and go? Never, not once.
Well, I think they did, but I
what's the 90 minutes about 3 times today?
I think what happened was they ended up doing it quite often on the edge of. You know, they were winning it back quite well in defence, and then it was. You know, to be fair to Huddersfield, that's when they saw their opportunities to press high up the field, and I think then we were trying to play those little triangles and 1-2s and break on them, but you know they countered it quite well. So look, it was a bit of a ding dong. You know, I thought Huddersfield, you have to give them credit. You know, they are one of the teams who've really changed their season around, and got the certain players are doing a lot better for them. So, but you know, Davey, you got to look as well at the lack of options that the manager's got.
Picture, I know that the bigger picture is used. I just think them players missed a chance last night, especially with Millwall losing.
Yeah, well,
that's the frustrating part about it. That game was there for them. If they played like they did against Burnley, like they did against Norwich, we would have beat them last night.
And there were chances, Davey, even with them not playing as well as they sometimes have.
I think you could have won the game and come away quite happy with this. Is, you know, it's this sort of. The result forms the opinion, doesn't it? Sometimes, you know, we did create some good chances, and you know, Sorry, Davey, what you said?
I think we both said the same thing, didn't we?
Ahmad wasn't on his game last night. He was a miss.
Yeah, he completely missed control, 2 of them. Which
that one off Clark in the second half. All he had to do was just trap it, and he was in.
He just. I thought, as I said, it was difficult. You know, they were up against powerful players who know the game, and we just lacked that maybe a little bit of nous. But you know, at the same time, I do enjoy watching them play.
You know, I was still playing every day, Mark.
You know, they were still having a go. They were still trying to go forward and try and win the game. They weren't happy to sit on a draw.
No.
So you know you gotta sort of applaud that really more than anything.
Applaud them every week. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Just so frustrating last night. It's a frustration because we could have won the game. But,
well, yeah, we can't. You know, this is a football season. It's it's about that, and it's so tight. I mean,
anything could happen yet. I mean,
we're the only over the last 6 games of all the teams in that top 8, you know, we're the only one who haven't lost a game in the last 6. You know, so it's wide open. Anything could happen, really. They've all got the fault.
Well, that's what we see.
Well, I think it's been, you know, if we do, we're talking about something that realistically shouldn't even be we shouldn't even be talking about. But they've done
not when you put the injuries together. It's like frightening to think where we are.
So let's just enjoy the last 3 games and hope they can do something special.
Thank you very much, Davey.
Cheers, lads. Have a good
Take
evening.
it easy, Davey. All the best.
Thank you. Derek sent a text. He says, "Hi lads, it was a disappointing result last night, but there will be plenty of twists and turns to come. For instance, Blackburn's next 3 games are Coventry, Preston and Burnley. So we are still in with a shout. However, we need to win all 3 matches, and what would help us is if we don't keep trying to overplay. For instance, last night Jack Clark was in a great position to shoot, but passed to Ahmad. My fingers are still firmly crossed, though. Keep up the good work," says Derek. I don't know if he means us or Sunderland, but either way.
Probably both, I think, but
yes.
yeah.
And there will be twists and turns. Do you think, Marco, they need to win all 3? I still think maybe even 2 wins and a draw might get him in there.
Well, it's like you say, if Blackburn win all their 3 games, that would be good for us, wouldn't it? And then they took one place, and we sneak in the back door with the other one. I don't know. There's so many permutations. Sometimes I start looking at it and looking at me, I have 6 tabs open on me, and then my head starts hurting. So, there's so many different ways that it could go. But we could easily do it with. I think we've probably. 2 wins and a draw would give us a really good chance, but it's this time of the season. I mean, this is why we love the playoffs. I mean, I was trying to explain this I was talking to my daughter the other day. She said, "What's the playoffs about?" I said, "Well, look, there was before the playoffs started. The majority of the teams, their season was over months ago." And it's an amazing format.
So if it was the top 3 going up, Luton in 3rd place have 74 points, Sunderland catching them. So it would have been over a while ago.
But at the moment, we've got teams in 8th, 9th, and 10th who probably still think they've got a chance. It really is
right
amazing.
Down to Watford in 12th, really on 59 points, just 4 points off the playoffs. So it is still, in the words of Brian Moore, up for grabs, isn't it? Right then, let's change tack. We'll talk Newcastle next.
Still chasing a championship playoff place.
Yet again, they cannot reach the 3rd consecutive win,
Sunderland head to West Brom. Nick Barnes and Gary Bennett have the whole 90 live.
Total Sport.
Beaten by the Villains.
Hasn't been a good place to come, this.
The European race continues with a crucial meeting at St James's Park against Spurs. Matthew Racebeck and John Anderson will have every kick live. We build up to kick off Sunday from 11.
Great sport kicks off here.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Mike in Whitley Bays sent us a text message. It's essential we move on Dubravka and Dummett and Ritchie and Lewis and Fraser and Mike here in the summer to free up squad places for players who would actually play. That's what Mike thinks. Joe is on the line. Hello, Joe. Good evening.
Good evening, Brady. Evening, Marco, Andrew.
Hey, Joe. How are you doing?
All right. What do you think of it? Massive game on Sunday, absolutely massive.
Yeah, look, it's one of those games where you're looking for a response after the Villa game. And there's so much riding on it for both these sides as well. Spurs blotted their copybook by losing at home to Bournemouth. That was a big favour for us, But look, I think every time that we've had a little blip, and there hasn't been too many. The response has always been good. So I think the atmosphere again at the weekend, it's one to look forward to. Would you make changes? Would you change anything from the Villa? Do you think he'll stick with the side that started at Villa? He's been very loyal. Eddie Howe, he's stuck with players through thick and thin. There hasn't been too many thin times, thank God. But do you think he'll name an unchanged side, or will he make changes?
Personally, I would like to stick targeted at left back. It's just Dan Burn. I know Dan Burn's had a great season, but the odd times you get found out.
So you would say it's definitely better than a non-acting, yeah?
I would personally stick Mark Target there left back.
Oh, fantastic.
But other than that, Baxy's fit, Nalmaran's fit.
Yeah, I've just come back from a taxi
Does Murphy deserve dropping? So I think the kid's been class the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, it's big decisions for him to make. I think it'll be a tough old week for him. We don't know the state of play with St Maximin. Obviously, Almiron's back, came on, got a run out, did okay. Does he come straight back in? Because as you say, Murphy's done okay. He's done well. Gordon started at Villa. Probably didn't have his best game, but still finding his feet a little bit. So yeah, interesting.
The only thing that worries me is this VAR, the officials. That's the only thing that worries me about the game. You guarantee it'll be the last 5 minutes or something like that. It'll be nils each. And the Spurs will get a dubious penalty or a goal that'll be offside.
Hey, how's that back? I'm back.
Here's this conspiracy theories again, isn't it? You know,
it's top six biased. Like the.
We had this last night as well, didn't we? We hear this quite a bit.
The Man U's, the Spurs.
It's gone fast forward the Newcastle chat.
I mean, if you were to ask Brighton fans about this, they'd probably say it's 2 minutes past 7 now, and here's my.
It's his
time of our lives night as well. We'll do that just before 7:30, and we've got a bit of reaction as well in the second hour of the programme to last night's snooker derby as well, North East derby at the World Championship.
Total Sport. BBC Radio Newcastle.
Finished very late last night. We got an update after the Sunderland game, but there was still a bit to go there, and eventually Wallsend's Gary Wilson try Mitchell Hill. Don't have to tell us there. Darryl, well done for cycling in. Blocker made it 7.
Performances, we still could.
A defeatist attitude.
But at the end of the
Marco, and I think a lot of people, even if they are now hoping rightly that promotion could still be acquired, I think that's the way that most people, if Sunderland remain in the Championship next season, will reflect on this campaign.
You've got to go into every season hoping that you can mount a challenge. I think you don't have to be the top team, the biggest spender, the fancied club. That's why we all love this game, because it often gets found out, as it did last year was it Huddersfield and was it Luton, the other one, who were a bit that they were came from nowhere, and we see it every year. So look, I think that there's a disappointment for me in that we were competitive. We've been competitive this whole season. You look at the likes of Blackburn. There was times this season where they were 10 and 12 points behind us, and we've been just hovering in that sort of, I don't know, 8th to the top 6th or whatever. Quite most of this season we've been fairly consistent. We've not had a spell where we've won 6 out of 10 or anything like that. We've just sort of dotted along at that sort of 1.2 to 1.5 points per game all the season, really. And I think
we have
that for me. That was encouragement to support the manager with a signing of a striker, and I think that's the bit that's gonna that's the disappointment, because this team is still valid. It is still in amongst it. We didn't get beaten by Huddersfield last night. A lot of decent teams in this playoff fight have been beaten by Huddersfield recently, and we didn't, because they're playing the best football of their season. In this little mini spell that they're having. So look, that's the bit that's sort of it's keeping me going, because I still think we can do it, and it would be against all odds, to be honest.
Mark was optimistic, isn't he?
There is something there, but last night I think we were just a little bit ran out of energy a bit last night after maybe a midweek game comes along and just sometimes knocks the stuffing out of some players.
Marco and our guest Neil, and they both think it is still possible, it is still on. Sunderland fans, share your views with us tonight. Darryl, from a Newcastle point of view, well, I know you're not a huge fan of Aston Villa, are you? So that must have hurt at the weekend.
Well, to be honest, quite reflect.
Danger
games in hand on Tottenham, and they're only for the other team
to be chasing the champions.
Would be for them to
have got a game in hand with them.
And look what somehow Howard Webb was in. Easier to
stuff now, including
I tried Newcastle.
How are lads? Football and AI. Hoyt in the river. I think he means artificial intelligence rather than Amnesty International, but might be both, bearing in mind. I think we could probably do without it. We don't hoy things in the river really on a Wednesday night, do we?
Hoyed in the river.
Maybe make an exception, Alan, tonight. Thank you very much indeed for your message. Let's have a chat now to Chris, who is a Sunderland supporter, and he can give his verdict on what happened last night, and indeed, Chris, what happens next. Good evening.
Good evening, guys.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Obviously, the disappointing result last night. But despite that, we're still all to play for. We've got three games left, so we're 1-1. So we can still end up in that playoff mix. But I think we probably need at least, I believe, 7 points from the 3 games to have maybe an outside chance with get crashing the top 6. But I think don't know where we just ran out of options at the end. I think yesterday, we didn't play it with normal capabilities for whatever reason. I think the injuries has caught up with the amount of injuries to key personnel. But obviously, with any Neil Warnock side, you know exactly what you're going to be up against. I think second half, I think they were the stronger side, and if anything, I thought if any team was going to win it, unfortunately, I thought it was going to be them. So I'm not too disappointed with the result, but in a way, we didn't lose. We still picked up a point. We've still got 3 games to go, and if you took in this saying that with 3 games to go, the season hasn't petered out. We've still got everything to play for. I think the fans would have took that. We've just got to put everything into perspective. Though this season was meant to be a season of sort of consolidation. No one really knew how we were going to adapt to the league, having been out of it for so long, having a young, inexperienced squad. But I think they've surpassed everyone's expectations, and I think even if the season finished now, 8th place in the championship, first season back, I think everyone would have snapped their hand off. So still not doom and gloom, despite what I've seen some comments. But we've got to go last 3 games, give it everything, see where it takes us. Basically, you just never know. I think a lot of the teams around us have to play each other between now and the end of the season.
They do, including tonight.
So taking points off each other.
And it went very, very well as well.
Away from home. Our style of play that we've had to adapt to, actually, I think is more suited to playing away from home than actually at the Stadium of Light. I think the stats prove that. The amount of, obviously, we're better on the roads than we have been at the Stadium of Light for whatever reason. But as I said, for me, definitely not doom and gloom. I think we've just got to take our hats off to what's been a really, really entertaining season, personally.
Is that a fair summary, Neil, do you think?
Yeah, Chris, I agree with you entirely. It's obvious the injury to Ross Stewart sort of massively affected us, but I think we've done very, very well. And I think most North East supporters are very happy this season. Positives from last night, it's been mentioned there were a lot of corners and a lot of free kicks they had, and Anthony Patterson was outstandanding.
He was.
I used to concern us a year ago, thinking he won't come off his line, and I just think he's getting better and better. And that was, I thought that was great.
He's just grown in stature, not just mentally and experience wise, but his actual physical stature. When he came through quite a few times, sort of with his arms, leading with his arms above his head, just to get in amongst the forest of heads there. And he just looked so strong, didn't he, and powerful. And I think he's made great. He's probably been, made more progress than any player this year. To be honest, I think it's been. It was a great performance from him last night.
Yeah, great. So, and I think 7 points is a realistic target, Chris. The 2 away games and a draw, I think it's realistic. So it's still possible. Absolutely. I'm still positive about it all. We've only had a couple of flat days like last night this season, and the football we're playing. Neil Warnock, he mentioned in a commentary a few months ago on one of the Sunderland games how much he likes Jack Clark, and that's the fact of it. We've got a lot of coveted wide players, in Clark and Roberts and Ahmad, and we've got certainly one of the most coveted centre forwards in Ross Stewart, and then so now we've got an outstanding goalkeeper. We're just getting there, and I'm more than happy.
Anything else that you'd like to add to that, Chris?
No, as I say, I think the season's been brilliant. As I say, it's still all to play for. Let's just basically just finish the season off on a high, to go for it and see where it takes us. We might just by hook or by crook, we might just sneak into that last playoff spot.
Good rallying call. Chris, thank you very much indeed. I've been looking at the last 5 seasons in terms of the points total required to get into the playoffs. They're on 62 points now, so they can get a maximum of 71. 75, 77, 70, 74, 75. So it's kind of mid-70s that you normally need. So it's going to be a year when perhaps a slightly lower total will suffice.
There have been some years. I think I went back a bit further than that, and there was a couple in 70 and I think one, if I remember rightly. So it can be one of it could be one of those seasons, and we'll just have to fingers crossed and hope the lads can do the business. But it is very exciting and very enthralling, and they've definitely got the attention of the fans with the amount of season tickets sold for next year, haven't they?
Wearside Jim has sent us a message. Got to stop believing, Marco. That's the problem. It's the hope that kills you. Typical Sunderland. Keep us hanging on with a neither result. Lose and hope goes with it. Win, hope springs eternal. But no. Not with Sunderland. We get a draw just to keep us hanging on a thread. 8 points dropped at home this season from winning positions. In fact, 6 or so wins at home is bordering on shambolic. 4,000 home fans watch 6 wins. 3,000 away fans watch 10 wins, says Wearside Jim.
Yeah, it's a fact. It's absolute fact.
Is he right about that thing about Sunderland always just doing that and keeping the hope just about there?
I think about 5 seasons in my 50 years where it's been matterless at the end of the season. It's just a Sunderland thing, and we love it. I love it.
I think it's 7 wins, isn't it? We've had 7 home wins.
I haven't checked to see.
Yeah, seven home wins, and look, we've had 7 defeats at home. It's not, it's been 7. It's the 8 draws. Probably, you take 2, 3, 4 of them out, into win in the win column. It makes a huge difference. But look, we've also, we've spun that around. You can't have everything. You just that is the vagaries of a maybe an inexperienced team, and I think I've been looking at a few stats today. We're actually 5th in the table this year with 9 wins, and so you got to take the rough with the smooth, but. We knew it was going to be a challenge because of the type of players that we've got, and not how the style of footballer they are, but the age and probably that physical presence thing as well last night. I think that was a factor last night in the game, physical presence, and it's been the thing that's probably been our biggest hurdle to overcome this season. The teams who are big and strong and athletic have caused us a problem.
This one is from Alan in Witten Park. Disappointing, too many players below the usual standard. I think that puts the impossible dream to bed, but I will keep hoping, says Alan. And Richard in Barnes says, didn't deserve 3 points last night, but had the chances to win it comfortably. Players unavailable to us: Huggins, Sirkin, Ballard, Elise, Evans, Embleton, Mishu, Stewart and Bennett. We have done superbly this season. In my opinion, we have overachieved. And that kind of, I guess that's from Richard in Barnes, I guess that list of players there.
Well, half of them would have started last night.
Yeah.
Emma never gets a mention. Do you know what? He's the best. He's probably our best bet for a goal outside the box. He's the best crosser of a ball, and he's been
aggressive. He's one of our most aggressive players.
Certainly would have offered a lot, wouldn't he, in his run into the season.
Yeah.
So,
but as I said, 5 or 6 of those players would have been, and probably, the rest of them would have been on the bench, and 4 or 5 of the players who were on the bench last night wouldn't have been on the bench, which is a big factor. When you put in. We put you've got one of your players of the season comes off, and we put a sub on who has, you know, hardly kicked a ball at this level, and well, at any level professionally, and it's sort of that's the huge contrast between us and so many clubs in this division.
Let's move on, because we have the small matter of a sporting time of our lives to come, fellas.
I was miles away last time.
I just thought I'd leave it hanging out there to see what sort of reaction it got. I thought Darryl would at least be enthusiastic.
Well, it depends what year it is.
You always enjoy it. It's coming up in a moment.
Call free 0800 234 6.
I'm more confident now.
I've changed my mind.
You've changed your mind, have you? Has signed a new 2-year deal with in his name, and it's easy to say. Sankam. Not on Sankam. It's easy, really. Anyway, I'm still glad he's out. The Stool answered the sporting time of our lives then. Let's do this now. There's loads of messages. Loads of people having a crack at this tonight. So it was indeed 1995, so well done if you got life.
Any grudges at that?
So there's going to be thousands from Sunderland and Newcastle studio.
This in the past on the show, we've had referees on, and they say that.
Yeah.
They say that even very young players and even older players are influenced by what they see on the telly.
Yeah. They should just stop it. Anyway, that's that little rant over. What I was going to say was to everybody that's there in the studio, it's been a great season for the North East. I'm a Newcastle fan, but I'm also, you know, I'm a football fan for the North East. I like to see everybody do well, and I think everybody in the North East should be very proud of what's happened so far this season. We've done exceptionally well, but also there's going to be thousands from Sunderland and Newcastle that's going to be gutted if we don't get that last place, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think we just spoke about it earlier, Brian. You know, I think people would be disappointed if they didn't make Champions Leagues. But if you for the
ball going down,
I'll be there.
It's down for the
at the beginning.
If we don't do it,
yes,
because there's an awful.
Says Garrel.
I think it'll reach a few more on top of that.
If they were to finish in there under the sun.
With your mate.
Look, it'll still be tough.
Down at Tottenham.
I didn't like
how poorly I played.
How did he find
Going back a little bit, he was playing better than he did this morning. I was playing worse than I did this morning. I think the run of the ball changed a little bit. He started getting a little bit as well. And then I still had my chance though at 9-5. I missed the black to go up for the yellow, and I was a bit shocked that I'd missed it, to be honest. And yeah, from that it just started going really pear-shaped. So yeah, it got to 9-8 and it was getting a bit too close for comfort. But luckily I potted a good red in the last, and I was just determined.
And Neil, do you want some good news?
Yes.
We know.
Neil thinks I had a little bit of a moan about it at the transfer window, but then the team have, you know, I think like most fans, I think we've had to get behind the team, and they've given us lots to be happy about. It'll be interesting to know how they review what happened in January, Neil.
I just think, you know, I've had this conversation with you before, Marco. When we signed Gelhardt, I was happy that he was I believed him to be a forward, and he's from a different level. He's had a couple of very good games, the last couple of games, and he's hit the net a couple of times. We just persisted with him too long, I thought. But I was gutted a year ago when we didn't sign Nathan Broadhead, and you know, and things change, and you just, you know, I think I trust recruitment, and I think we'll get there in the end. It's obviously all the things that we've stated repeatedly have happened, but I trust that we will get there in the end, and I do think we'll get 2 centre forward. I think the problem signing the centre forward is, you know, the centre forward knows he's not going to get in front of Ross Stewart for what we'll pay for him.
Ross Stewart might not be here next year. I mean, I think that's the thing for me is the question is, how long does this process take? Because, look, if I was a lower end Premier League type side, or a top end Championship side, or a promoted side, I'd be looking at Dennis Sirkin. You know, I'd be looking at Patterson. I think we've got some players in our squad who are, you know, there will be people looking at them and wanting to get them in their squad. So then we're starting to get, you know, and I know there are players off the new ones off the ranks, the likes of Equa and you know those sort of players that they're going to keep filling, but you can't get it right every time.
Do you two want some more good news?
Go on.
Queen's Park Rangers are leading against Norwich City, another of Sunderland's playoff rivals.
It's happening, man. It's happening.
So there we go. That's Let's Talk Sunderland Part 2. Just a bit of a rerun on the Total Sport show and the Wiseman's Here podcast. Just a bit of chat and a bit of reaction